Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parirajikacharya Asadara Sata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Kira. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, all glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna, we're reading from Bhagavad Gita. I mentioned some verses from the 16th chapter, but then I thought it's better to read actually. Or I thought 16th chapter, but now I want to read 2nd chapter, text 13. So, chapter 2, text 13. Hare Krishna? Better?
Yeah, better.
Dehinasmin yata dehe. Dehinosmin yata dehe. Kaumaram yovanam jara. Kaumaram yovanam jara. Tatha dehantaras prapti. Tatha dehantaras prapti. Dhirastatra namuhyati. Dhirastatra namuhyati. Dehinasmin yata dehe. Kaumaram yovanam jara. Tatha dehantaras prapti. Dhirastatra namuhyati. Anyone else like to chant this verse?
Dehinasmin yata dehe.
Dehinasmin yata dehe.
Kaumaram yavanam charam.
Kaumaram yavanam.
Tradihantara praptir.
Dehantaras prapti.
Dhirastatra namuhyate.
Dhirastatra namuhyati. Anyone else? Okay, word for word translation. Dehina, of the embodied. Asmin, in this. Yatha, as. Dehe, in the body. Kaumaram, boyhood. Yovanam, youth. Jara, old age. Tatha, similarly. Deha antara, of transference of the body. Prapti, achievement. Dhira, the sober. Tatra, thereupon. Na, never. Muhyati, is deluded. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Please repeat after me. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Purport. Since every living entity is an individual soul, each is changing his body every moment, manifesting sometimes as a child, sometimes as youth, and sometimes as an old man. Yet the same spirit soul is there and does not undergo any change. This individual soul finally changes the body at death and transmigrates to another body, and since it is sure to have another body in the next birth, either material or spiritual, there was no cause for lamentation by Arjuna on account of death, neither for Bhishma nor for Drona, for whom he was so much concerned. Rather, he should rejoice for their changing bodies from old to new ones, thereby rejuvenating their energy. Such changes of body account for varieties of enjoyment or suffering according to one's work in life. So Bhishma and Drona, being noble souls, were surely going to have spiritual bodies in the next life, or at least in heavenly bodies for superior enjoyment of material existence. So in either case, there was no cause of lamentation. Any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of the individual soul, the supersoul and nature, both material and spiritual, is called a dhira, or a most sober man. Such a man is never deluded by the change of bodies. The Mayavadi theory of oneness of the spirit soul cannot be entertained on the ground that the spirit soul cannot be cut into pieces as a fragmental portion. Such cutting into different individual souls would make the Supreme cleavable or changeable against the principle of the Supreme Soul being unchangeable. As confirmed in the Gita, the fragmental portions of the Supreme exist eternally, sanatana, and are called kshara, that is, they have a tendency to fall down into material nature. These fragmental portions are eternally so, and even after liberation, the individual soul remains the same, fragmental. But once liberated, he lives an eternal life in bliss and knowledge with the personality of Godhead. The theory of reflection can be applied to the Supersoul who is present in each and every individual body and is known as the Paramatma. He is different from the individual living entity. When the sky is reflected in water, the reflections represent both the sun and the moon and the stars also. The stars can be compared to the living entities and the sun or the moon to the Supreme Lord. The individual fragmental spirit soul is represented by Arjuna, and the Supreme Soul is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. They are not on the same level as it will be apparent in the beginning of the 4th chapter. If Arjuna is on the same level with Krishna and Krishna is not superior to Arjuna, then their relationship of instructor and instructed becomes meaningless. If both of them are deluded by the illusory energy, Maya, then there is no need of one being the instructor and the other the instructed. Such instruction would be useless because in the clutches of Maya no one can be an authoritative instructor. Under the circumstances, it is admitted that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord, superior in position to the living entity, Arjuna, who is a forgetful soul deluded by Maya. So the verse was, Dehinosmin yatarehe go komaram yomaram jara tatharihantara praptir dhirasatranamoyati. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body, from boyhood to youth to old age, similarly the soul passes to another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So, Bhagavad Gita deals with two aspects of knowledge. That is the knowledge of the self and the knowledge of the Supreme. And this point in the Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna was having his arguments, like we heard from this purport, there was different names of different personalities, and Arjuna was concerned to fight against those people. Because if someone such as my temple president and temple commander and my father and my friends and relatives would come inside the room and I start shooting arrows at them, do you think it would be nicely done to them? No. So Arjuna was thinking like that also, but Krishna started to educate him in real knowledge. Sometimes we take knowledge as to understand how the material nature works, which is a kind of knowledge, but real knowledge means to understand the difference between the matter and spirit. So here we hear that the soul is spirit and the body is matter. And how the body is changing, but we are not changing. So Arjuna was concerned about fighting against these people because he was under the bodily conception of life. In the bodily conception of life, one doesn't understand his eternity, and he is under the impression that we are our external bodies and others are their external bodies. And therefore, as in this verse is mentioned, one has to accept a material body. Para bhavasthavada bhoda jato yavan jikyasata atma tattvam yavan kriyastavad idam manovai karmatmakam yena sharira bandha. As long as one does not inquire about the spiritual values of life, one is defeated and subjected to miseries arising from ignorance. So as long as one does not become inquisitive, and at this point Arjuna was not yet very inquisitive, he was convinced that to do the right or to act piously is the main thing. But the Bhagavad Gita is beyond mundane moralities. In general, Arjuna's arguments are accepted as arguments of someone who is a good man, who is doing his duty in this world and who is following the moral principles. But Krishna's addressing Arjuna as a fool is to bring him to an higher understanding. So Bhagavad Gita is, the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita is to liberate ourselves, the soul, from material entanglement. And it begins from understanding that we are not this body, which we heard in the verse. That I'm experiencing the different changes of the body, but I, who am experiencing the changes of the body, still I am not changing. Now someone might claim that, no, I am this body. Then which body? The 5-year-old body, or the 15-year-old body, or the 30-year-old body? Which body? So by dint of a little bit intelligent, one can observe that he is actually different from his body. But due to this false identification with the external body, one is absorbed in this bodily conception of life, where he sees others as friends and enemies, like Arjuna saw. There, Bhishma is my grandfather, Drona is my guru, my military teacher, therefore I should not commit this sin to kill them. But Krishna is different from Arjuna, so as we are different from the body, also as a soul we are different from the Supreme Soul. So the other aspect of knowledge is that there is God. But before going into that, this false identification ourselves as our external bodies is called as ahankar. Does anyone know what is ahankar?
False ego.
Aham means I, and kar means the car. Means I am the car. We identify with the car, although we are just a passenger in the car. Yes, false ego. And it can be explained by an analogy that that there is a car and there is a passenger within the car. And then when someone hits the car, I might say, why did you hit me? No, sir, I didn't hit you, I hit the car. But because one is identifying himself as the car, then he thinks that he hit me. So under the impression of false ego, identifying ourselves as these external bodies, we might think that if I drive to the petrol station and I fill the car with petroleum, then my day has become complete. But that does not mean that we would not be hungry. So therefore, our main interest should be in the passenger. It doesn't mean that we would neglect the car. The car needs oil sometimes, the car needs to take care of the paints, but if we are just completely focused on, wow, look at this nice painting, and the passenger is starving, that will not be very intelligent. Or if the car is driving down the cliff and we just keep adding vitamins to the car. No, you need something more than just vitamins. You need this consciousness. You need to have some intelligence to steer the car back to track. So therefore, intelligence and consciousness, understanding our eternity, is the main interest for those who are inquisitive, they're becoming to the spiritual knowledge. Anaditvam nirgunatvat paramatmaya avyaya sharirastopi kaunteya na karoti na lipyate. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the transcendental soul is eternal, beyond the modes of material nature. It is eternal, transcendental, and beyond the modes of material nature. Although in contact with the material body, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. So Krishna explains the same thing from so many different points of view, and that is called perspective. Now, who is Krishna? In the purport we heard, he is the one who tells us these things. And he is called God. He claims himself that he is God in the Bhagavad Gita. Now anyone can claim themselves to be God. Matter of fact, in this world, everyone thinks, if not claims openly themselves, at least thinks and lives as if they would be the supreme. If I don't identify myself as the controller of the universe, at least some part of the universe I am the proprietor of. But Krishna says that he is God, and the beginning of understanding about God means that he is the proprietor of everything. And proprietorship means that he is also in control of everything. Now one can think that how greedy one can be. It's okay, he's here, and he has his place here, but why does he have to come into my house? It must be a very greedy person. Now, but everything is emanating from him, as he says, and everything is coming from him. That means everything what is good is coming from him, as well as everything what is bad is also coming from him. So there is a difference between the individual soul, who is within this body, and also between the Supreme Soul, who is also situated within the same body. And the individual soul is the living entity, or Jivatma, and then the Supreme Soul is Paramatma, the Super Soul. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness is coming from him. That Krishna, God, is within the heart of every living entity, and that knowledge, remembrance and forgetfulness is coming from him. Now I might have an excellent memory, but sometimes I don't remember where I put my keys. That means that we are not independent even in our remembrance, but there is actually someone who is supplying that remembrance to us and intelligence. Like for example, if I want to find sugar from the kitchen, I might find, but probably the ant will find it before I find, because the ant is supplied more intelligence by the same super soul who is within the heart of me and within the heart of the ant to find the sugar. So in this way we can investigate that we are different from the body, and that there is also within the body God's representative called the super soul. So therefore we, in order to receive knowledge, we need to connect with the super soul who actually doesn't only manifest within but also without, means that external manifestation